Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing the end of the year book tag. I really like this tag because I feel like it's a really fun way to recap your reading year. We're starting off strong with most disappointing book of the year, and this is actually a book I DNF'd, and that is Nothing Like the Movies. This is the sequel to Better Than the Movies, which I really loved Better Than the Movies, but this just was not working for me. The characters are very different in the second one, which makes sense. They're older and they've since gone through things, so I understand that, but I just felt like I was reading two completely different characters, and I also just thought it was kind of boring. I think I read like 40% and just nothing was really going on, nothing was really grabbing my attention, so that was definitely disappointing because I really loved Better Than the Movies and I was really excited to read the sequel. Next is what was an underdog book. To me, I feel like this means like an underrated book, and I have a couple. The first is You Should Be So Lucky. This is a historical fiction romance between a baseball player and a reporter in 50s New York City. This book was so good. I have never annotated a book as much as I annotated this book. It was just so beautiful, and I never have ever see people talking about it, even though it's insanely good. Another one is Sunshine, another romance. This one's like small town, cowboy, Friday Night Lights, past and present. Obsessed with this book. Again, I never ever see people talking about it. It's so good. I have not stopped thinking about this book since I read it months ago. And same thing for the next book, which is Metal Slinger. This is a fantasy. Have not stopped thinking about it. It's so good. The ending to this is absolutely insane, and it was just so good from page one. I was hooked. I loved it. All three very underrated books. On the other hand, a book that I read that was overhyped was Powerless. This is a fantasy, very popular, and I didn't hate it. Like, I had a good time reading it. It was fun, but I think she was very heavily inspired by other books, bordering on ripping off. I'm sorry, and that just really bothered me, specifically The Hunger Games. I just can't look past that even though I wish I could. Again, didn't absolutely hate it. I still had a good time, but I do think it's overhyped. A book that surprised you, this was definitely Lights Out. This is a dark romance where he's basically stalking her. I did not think that this was going to be my cup of tea at all, but I heard a snippet of the audiobook and just thought it sounded so funny, and I really like the audiobook narrator, so I gave it a shot and I ended up really loving this. It's so outrageous, but it was really fun, and I thought the couple was really cute, and I ended up liking this way more than I thought I would. My favorite book couples of the year, again, I have a few. I'm very indecisive. The first one is The Couple from Out on a Limb. Honestly, I do not remember a lot of these characters' names. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible at remembering character names, but I loved The Couple from Out on a Limb. This is an accidental pregnancy trope book, which I didn't think I liked until I read this book. They're both disabled. She has like a baby hand. There's an actual scientific name for it, I just don't remember what it is, and he has an amputated leg, and they meet at a Halloween party because they're both dressed as pirates, and I just was obsessed with them. Like, he is so sweet to her, he just wants to take care of her, and they were just the cutest together, and I loved seeing them get to know each other as the pregnancy goes on. Loved them. Also, The Couple from Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. Thought they were the cutest ever. She's a single mother, and he was just so sweet to her and her kids, and I just loved them together. They had me blushing and kicking my feet. And honestly, there are so many. If I gave a romance 3.5 stars or better, I probably was obsessed with The Couple, if I'm being real. I just tried to like pare it down and also not repeat a ton of books, but there were so many couples I read this year that I loved. My favorite main character of the year was Murphy from I'll Get Back to You. This is a sapphic holiday romance. It takes place over Thanksgiving weekend. Maybe it's narcissistic to say she was my favorite, because the reason I love her so much is that she is literally me. I have never read a character whose life is so similar to mine. Like, personality wise, I don't know if we're exactly alike, but in terms of like her life and where she's at, it's literally me, or was me a few years ago. She's going to community college, me. She wants to do marketing, me. Her best friend growing up went to a state school and she feels like she's left behind, me. Still lives with her parents, me. Where she is in her life was exactly me a few years ago, and me now, and I just related to her so much. It was insane. So she has a special place in my heart, and she was my favorite of this year. My new favorite author that I discovered this year is Annabelle Monaghan. She's a romance writer. She has 3 books, and I read all 3 this year, and I loved all 3 of them. I really love her writing style. I feel like it's not too fluffy or embellished. It's sort of more like to the point. She doesn't give you anything that you don't need, but it's still written in a really beautiful way and it's still fleshed out. 2 of her books are also single parent trope, which is probably my favorite trope ever, and they're summary and they're just so fun and I love them a lot. She's definitely now an auto-buy author for me. The most frustrating book I read this year is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is the second book in the Powerless series that I talked about earlier. Even though the first one wasn't my favorite book of all time, like I said, I still enjoyed it and I was excited to continue the series and go on to the second one. Literally nothing happens in this book. The entire plot of this book could have been resolved in 30 pages and it just gets dragged out for like 400 pages for absolutely no reason, and it was so frustrating because it was just the same thing over and over again and I kept waiting for something new to happen. I just didn't. The only saving grace of this book is that the end is really good, the last literally 10 pages, and so I am excited for the third book in the series to come out, but this was just such a drag. We needed way more plot for this to justify a full-length book. The best book adaptation of the year, of course, Heartstopper. I love Heartstopper. I'm obsessed with the graphic novels and the TV show, and I do feel like they are one of the best adaptations, book to movie adaptations that have been made in like recent years or ever. I think the adaptation is so well done. The casting, the storylines, incredible music, just the overall vibe, and they do such a good job of putting a little bit of the whimsy from the graphic novels into the TV show, and they are just my favorite. I love them and I love the show, and I think season 3 was so well done, especially because season 3 has a lot more serious topics going on than the previous 2 seasons, and they just handled it so well. I loved it. So well done. The longest book I read was Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is part of the Boys of Tommen series. Binding 13 and Keeping 13 are the first 2 books in the series. Keeping 13 is 667 pages, and I think Binding 13 is pretty similar. Do I think that these books need to be a combined 1200 pages? No, I do not. I know people love these books so much and I get why, and I did like them. I think I gave them 3 stars each, but they do not need to be this long, especially the first one. The first one's very repetitive. It's like the same day over and over again. This one, the second one, I feel like at least had a little more variety and you're getting like the resolution to the story, so I liked reading about that, but I still don't think it needed to be 667 pages personally. And then the shortest books I read this year are part of this thing that Amazon and Kindle did this year. They did it for Valentine's Day and for Christmas. They're like Amazon exclusive, so they're included in Audible and Kindle Unlimited, and they're sets of novellas, and each novella is written by a different author. So I think there was 5 each time, 5 for Valentine's Day and 5 for Christmas. The Improbable Meet Cute series and the Under the Mistletoe series, and these combined, I read all of them, are the shortest books I read this year because they're all really short. All of them are like 50, 75, 100 pages. My favorite covers of the year, again, I have a few. Lila Sage, her covers are so stunning. I am obsessed with them, and while I don't hate the like cartoon cover romance trend that I feel like a lot of people do hate, it is so refreshing when people do something different and have a very unique style with their covers, and she definitely has that. Same goes for Carly Fortune. Her covers are also just stunning. I feel like they should literally be hanging on my wall instead of on my bookshelf because they are so pretty. They all look like paintings and they're just gorgeous. I also really loved the cover of I'll Get Back to You. I just think it perfectly fits the vibe of the book, and I don't know, there's nothing like exceptionally different about it, I feel like, or like super insanely unique, but I just really love it. I don't know. And then I also really loved the cover for Heartless Hunter. Maybe it's just because I loved that book so much. It was a 5-star read for me, but I just think this cover is so pretty. She's called the Crimson Moth in the book, and so I just love the way that they incorporated that into the cover, and I think it's really pretty. For the next one, I'm actually combining 2 of these prompts, a book you haven't stopped thinking about and a book that you want to reread, and the answer to both of those is Metal Slinger. It's a fantasy, and it's what got me into my romantasy era that I've been in recently, and it's just one of those books that has such an insane twist and ending that you can't stop thinking about it, because I haven't stopped thinking about it since I read it months ago, and that you want to go back and reread with the knowledge that you find out at the end of the book to see if there's any clues or any differences now that you have the knowledge that you have. And this book was just so insanely good. Everyone should go read it, honestly. Like, do yourself a favor and read it because it's too good, and I can't wait to reread it, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. The cringiest read of the year was one of those Amazon Christmas novellas I talked about earlier, and it was All by My Elf. I know these are just like fun holiday novellas, so maybe I should give it more credit, but this was so cringy. Literally, she's like, oh, he must have M&Ms in his pocket. You're 37 years old. Like, why are we acting like we're 13? And we don't know what's going on. I just didn't like it. And I thought the whole thing was really cringy and just so like, they're literally in like a hot dog truck. It just was like not for me. It was too much. Next is an unpopular book I loved, and I have two because they're from the same author, and that's Claire Gilmore, Love Interest and Perfect Fit. She's another one. I feel like I never see people talking about her books, but I really liked both of these. I read them both this year. They're both workplace romances that are set in cities, New York and Austin, and I just really like her writing style. I really like her couples, and she really gets into the workplace business side of things, which I like. It's always really fleshed out, and I just really like her writing style, and I feel like she's very underrated and people should read her more because I just always have a really good time when I'm reading her books, and she hasn't let me down yet. So I'm definitely going to keep reading them. I think she could definitely become a favorite author of mine. My lowest rated on Goodreads and my highest rated on Goodreads, and do I agree? The highest rated on my Goodreads is Heartstopper Volume 4, and as you can probably tell, yes, I agree. I love Heartstopper, 5-star series overall. I already said all this, I'm obsessed with them. I definitely get why that's the highest rated from Goodreads, and I do think it deserves it. My lowest rated on Goodreads was The Fury. Also agree with this. This is a thriller by Alex Michaelides, the author of The Silent Patient. I liked The Silent Patient. I did not like his other two books at all, The Fury included. I think I gave this 1 star, maybe 2. I think I need to just give up on him as an author, honestly. I'm just not a fan of his. I think the setting of this was cool and like the basic premise was interesting, but I just did not like the way it was executed. Just didn't really love the characters, didn't really like the ending. I'm pretty sure my review on Goodreads for this is literally men with the eye roll emoji, and I feel like that'll tell you everything you need to know, really. And I really did not like this book, so yes, I agree. It should be low on Goodreads. My favorite book quotes of the year, I have 2. One is very short and simple. It's from Metal Slinger. Take a shot every time I talk about Metal Slinger, but it's just, you can never get loving people wrong. I know out of context it doesn't sound like anything special, but I don't know, I just really loved it and it just stuck with me. I've thought about it a lot since I read this, and I just think it's really sweet and I like it. The next one is a longer one. It's from You Should Be So Lucky, and the context for this one is very important, so keep in mind that this is a historical fiction romance between 2 men set in the 50s, so they obviously have to hide their identity, and one of the main characters is really struggling with this. So he wants to go to Greenwich Village because I think this is like the gay neighborhood sort of, even though obviously people had to like hide it back then, but he basically wants to be around other queer people even if he can't say that, because he just feels like he's the only one. So this is him walking around Greenwich Village. There are bars and restaurants as well as more coffee shops than he would have thought any neighborhood could possibly need. He tries not to look at anyone too closely. He's just a tourist taking in the sights, but he knows what he's looking for, and soon enough he finds it. A woman lights another woman's cigarette. A man in a snug white t-shirt looks over his shoulder at another man, and when a bar door opens, letting out a burst of music, there's the briefest glimpse of a man wearing what might be lipstick. I actually can't think about this book without crying. Like, I'm so serious. Like, I feel like crying. I just like cut the camera. This entire book has stuck with me so profoundly, but that just got me. Like, ouch, the fact that he has to go and walk around a neighborhood to feel like he's part of his community. I have to go. The book with the most unique concept, it was definitely The Ministry of Time. This book is sort of like 10 genres in one. It's like spy, romance, fiction, sci-fi. The main character works at the ministry in the department of expats, but the expats are people from the past because they've invented time travel, and they're bringing people from the past to the present to see if it's viable and if they can survive. And so each ministry employee gets matched with an expat, and hers is a naval officer from the 1840s, I think. I really liked this book. I've never read anything like it. I think it was definitely really unique, and it was really impressive to me that she was able to pull it off so well. I feel like this easily could have been a hot mess, like what the hell is going on in this book, but it was really good and really well done and just so unique. Next is my Goodreads reading goal reflection and my 2025 reading goal. So reflecting on this year, I'm really happy with my Goodreads goal. Obviously, I feel like everybody knows at this point the numbers don't matter, it's just for fun. But my Goodreads goal was originally 52 books because for me 1 book a week is fair. I feel like I can get that done pretty easily, And then I was at like 70 books, I think over the summer maybe. And so I was feeling ambitious because I was like 20 books ahead of my goal. So I raised it to 100. And right now as I'm filming, I think I've read 97 or 98. So I definitely will be hitting 100 by the end of the year because I have like 2 weeks left. And again, like the numbers don't matter, but I did think hitting 100 would be a really cool reading milestone, but I didn't think it was actually gonna happen because previously the most books I've read in a year was 70, so 100 was a stretch, but I did it almost and I'm really happy with that. I will say though, there are quite a few like novellas in there, so keep that in mind. Like if you're comparing yourself to me right now, keep that in mind. Like 10 of those are probably novellas, but I'm still really happy with that. And it is just a silly goal, but it's a silly goal that I wanted to hit, so I'm happy about it. With that being said, my reading goal for 2025, I'm gonna keep it at 52 because as much as a Goodreads reading goal can be fun and give you something to work towards, I don't want it to be stressing me out. I would rather keep it low and then exceed my expectations instead of setting it high and be stressing about it or disappointed when I don't hit it. So I'm gonna keep it 52 and we'll see where the year takes us. Lastly is, what will you prioritize in your 2025 reading year? This was sort of my goal for this year and I feel like I did do it a little, but I would like to do it more, and that is just diversify my reading a little bit genre wise. I feel like I read so many romances and I love romance. Truly, it's my favorite genre. I don't think it'll ever not be my favorite genre, but I do just read so many and I read so many similar ones because at this point I feel like I just know what I like, what tropes and what kind of settings and stuff. So a lot of the books I read are pretty similar, so I definitely want to branch out into new genres, new authors, and also diversify my reading in terms of perspective to race, gender identities. I do feel like the publishing industry is very whitewashed and I definitely haven't been making as much of an effort as I should to read more diversely in that sense as well. And like not consciously, but it's just something I've noticed that I do on accident. So I definitely want to be more intentional in that sense as well. And also just to read books that challenge me. I think for this year, I'm going to start off with one book a month that really challenges me. So a nonfiction, a classic, just something really outside my comfort zone that's gonna make me think and reflect and actually use my brain power instead of just silly little romances and thrillers. Not that there's anything wrong with those. I mean, look at my reading, you know. But I do just want to read books that make me use some more brain cells, you know. So those are my reading goals for 2025. Let me know some of your book highlights in the comments, your favorites, your least favorites, what surprised you, what disappointed you, anything like that. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. If you want to find me anywhere else, I'll have all my other socials down below as always. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.